welcome to Paranormal Versus. So, as you'll notice, this is unusual that you have just me on the screen for this show. Kell, unfortunately, is not feeling well, so I am going to handle this episode solo. So, our thoughts are to Kell and hoping that she gets to feeling better. And with that being said, we are both so excited to have Kathy Tierney Cogliano back on our show. Welcome back.
Michael. Hi, Kell. If you're watching, feel better, hon.
So, those of you who may have missed the first episode, I'll give you a quick synopsis. We were discussing our trip to Egypt, the experiences we had. Then we covered the music of the spheres and Rosalind. So today we are actually going to start with Italy and Kathy's experiences in Italy.
Oh, you're jumping to Italy. Okay. Woo. Okay, so wow. I had a couple of really unique experiences when I was in Italy. I traveled there with friends. My friends William Henry, his wife Claire, another friend Carol, and we, it was prior to William and Claire having a group tour planned. There was the four of us got together before we had that planned tour with the others joining us. So we kind of, hop skipped around Italy prior to. And what we did is we went to Herculaneum and we went to Pompeii. And I have to say, if any of you have been to either one, I have to say Herculaneum really, I don't know, I felt more energy there. I had an incredible experience that to this day, I know I've spoke about it on other shows. I think I experienced what could possibly be termed now as a time slip. So, I'll start there. When we came, and what's interesting about Herculaneum, I knew about Pompeii. I really did not know the history of Herculaneum. And like Pompeii, Herculaneum was one of those rich resorts, coastal towns for the elite and the famous, and beautiful villas, very intact. I was shocked. They had, a lot of the buildings were still standing there, even though, covered with all of the soot the same way that Pompeii became covered that horrible day. As we were walking through, the first thing that really just grips you is as you go into that whole area of Herculaneum, you come in facing what is the boathouse. And I don't know if any of you have seen pictures of that. That jarred me because the bodies of those dear souls that were eradicated within seconds that day of Mount Vesuvius erupting, their bones are still piled in the boathouse. So I kind of wish I had a little heads up on that one. That was a big impact. As I walked in, I thought, oh gosh, what else is going to happen here? Because I'm such, I go into these sacred places, these sites. It's happened all over the world. And there's something that I believe, because I was trained in opening up the Akashic Records. I automatically, the records open for me when I'm in these places. And oftentimes in these sacred places, there's a lot of death, as obviously there was in Herculaneum and Pompeii. And I was really taken aback by seeing all of those bodies there in the boathouse. So, we go into Herculaneum proper, you kind of walk around the boathouse, you go in, and there were a lot of people there that day. And so we're just, a lot of narrow cobbled streets. Everything was very tight, the buildings. And so we're going in from one villa to another villa. And, I'm in, a villa with William, Claire, Carol. We're all talking, we're exploring. And then I'm drawn to this villa that was across the little alleyway, the next villa across the street. So I leave them and I go into this villa. And as I walked in, I was like shocked that there was this stunning bronze sculpture of who the gentleman was who owned the villa. And it's front and center as you walk into this villa, still totally intact. It's as though you saw it, you were in a museum. I was shocked that it survived the devastation. And so as I'm noticing that, all of a sudden I realize, okay, there's no other sound. I'm no longer hearing people's voices. I'm no longer hearing William and Claire and Carol's voices right across the street from me. So I thought, oh, okay, what's going on here? So I leave this villa and I go across the street into the villa that we had been in. Nobody's there. I look around. There's nobody around me at all. It was shocking. And I thought, okay, what's going on? And this has happened before. So whatever plays out here, I'm always made to, and this happened in Egypt at the foot of the Sphinx. Somehow I'm by myself when I have these experiences. And so I start panicking a little bit, a little concerned about what's gonna happen. And so I quickly, run up into a main connecting road within Herculaneum. And I'm, frantically calling and looking for William, Carol, and Claire. And I see nobody. I continue to see nobody. So mind you, there have been hundreds of people around me at one point, and there's nobody now. So I'm walking down this main thoroughfare. And as I get to a crossing point of a road that comes up from where the boathouse was, I can't, it's still kind of hard to talk about. It was as though, I think the best thing for me I can say was a time slip, because all of a sudden I'm there. Okay, so I'm in the middle of old Herculaneum. I'm in the middle of all the chaos of people running and screaming. And I can hear this with my physical ears. I could hear the rumbling going up above from where the volcano is. I could hear just, and the thing that I'll never forget is hearing the wooden carts being pulled with people's possessions and children and everything that animals trying to rush out of that area, trying to make their way down to the ocean. It was as though they felt that's where the safety would be, is down at the ocean. And I'm just standing there, and all this is going by me, and I'm going, what the heck? When all of a sudden, the only thing I can say is I got to feel and witness the end. So what happened is everything comes spewing down from the volcano, and at the same time, the ocean rose because of just everything. And there was this huge crash and collide exactly where I stood. And I stood there, it happened. And I just remember being grateful that I'm still alive. And it was as though the minute all of that happened, I'm back in my time. I'm no longer surrounded by all of that chaos and death. And the sound was unbelievable. And I just started running. I started running down to the boathouse. There was a way to go out that way. So I thought, okay, I got to get out of here. I just need to get out of here. And as I'm running, I go by the bodies in the boathouse. I mean, it was a lot. It was a lot to experience. And then in the distance, I could see my friends up in the hill looking for me. And they could tell the minute I ran up and I was out of breath, I could barely hold myself together. And they're like, okay, what happened? And I shared with them what happened. And yeah, that set the stage, I got to say, in a big way, because from there, we then went to Pompeii. And I was pretty nervous, to go from that experience to what in God's name is Pompeii going to bring me? And I have to say, I was surprised that Pompeii seemed pretty clear to me. You pick up on the residual death feelings. I was picking up a little bit of some of that vibration of the eruption, but it was pretty clear. I was very surprised. And unfortunately, by the time we got to Pompeii, it was after the lunch hour. And so it was, early afternoon, and unbeknownst to us, Pompeii closes at 4 or something. And so we land there, and we only had like an hour and a half, and we're like, oh, geez, darn. So we, start kind of rushing through,
Right.
and a lot of it was a lot of the villas that we were hoping to, go into, they were all closed up. So when we were there, I believe that was in 2017, they were doing a massive renovation to, most of the villas that were there, the real big ones. So we were so disappointed that we did not get to really, see too many of these, we were not going to be able to get into these villas. So, okay. So I have to say, I jumped my story big time, because prior to going to Herculaneum, we were staying in Naples, and we went to the Museum of Antiquities there in Naples. And that's actually where my part of my story for Pompeii originated. So my apologies. You brought me to Italy so quick, Michael. I jumped into Herculaneum and didn't share this incredible story, because it all wraps up in Pompeii. So I'll quickly tell you. When we were in the museum is, if you're ever going, to either Herculaneum or Pompeii, go into the archaeological museum there in Naples. It's stunning. It's full of artifacts from both Pompeii and Herculaneum. And so what they did is, and they took away a lot of the frescoes that are in some of these stunning villas in both places, and they put them together within the museum. So as we were walking through, there's a whole part of the museum that are all of these beautiful rooms of these villas that they recreated with the actual walls and paintings of the villas. And so as I walked in, I was ahead of my friends, so I'm by myself as usual. And I walk into this area, and it's all part of a villa that had these beautiful red walls. I don't know if any of you have seen, they call it Pompeii red, bright red frescoes, walls painted. And I walked in, and I'm just standing there going, oh my God, wow. And then I felt this tug on my leg. It's like, it was as though a little kid hugged my leg. And I looked down, and there was a child in spirit of a little boy hugging my leg. I looked, and I went, oh my goodness. And as I looked down, he's only dressed, he has no clothes on. The only thing he has on are what look like little boots to me. And I thought, oh good God, what is this? And I no sooner looked down, and I could feel him holding my leg. And then as I looked down, it kind of creeped me out a little bit. I thought, oh God. So I looked up again, and as I looked back down, he was gone. So I thought, oh goodness, what just happened there? So I doubled back to find William, Claire, and Carol, thinking, okay, I'm going to share with them what just happened with this spirit of this little boy. And so they, so I find them, they come up, we go in, and don't you think, as we approach this part of the museum, for me to go back in, for them to experience it, they just locked it up. I was like, what? So the four of us work on the guard, and we're like, okay, we need to get back in there. And William's I'm writing a book. I need to take some pictures. So we're, we give our pitch, and she's like, okay, just the four of you, quick, go in, don't spend too much time, come back out. And she says to us in broken Italian. So we're like, thank you. So we go back in, and I bring them to this room where I had that experience. And again, this little boy comes to me. And as I look down again, and he hugs my leg, and what struck me was that he had no clothes on. It just, I for some reason, that just touched my heart, and I thought, what is this about? And that's when he showed me that he was a slave, and that he was attached to one of the villas. He was a slave. There were other children there with him, and that he was not allowed to wear clothes. And that's how he presented, is that he did not wear clothes, and he just had on these like little, what looked to me like boots. And as I'm having this exchange with him again, I said to Carol, I said, William and Claire had left the room at that point, and I said, he's here. And she could sense him. She couldn't see him with her physical eyes like I could. And I just was talking to him like you would a child. And I just said, it's okay. I said, do you want us to cross you over? Do you, we kind of talked about that. And he stayed a little bit, and then he was gone again. So I thought, okay, for whatever reason, he came to me. Crossing over wasn't going to happen, but okay. So, we go. So now I'm back to my story. So now, that exchange was lovely, sweet, a little strange, because I wasn't quite sure what was going on there with this little guy. And then, we go to Pompeii, and I had, that evening in the hotel, after I had that exchange in the museum, Carol and I were sharing a room. And as I'm sitting on the bed, this spirit of this little young boy came back, and he came into the room, and he sat next to me on the bed. And I said to Carol, he's here now with us. And so she came over, she sat on the bed opposite. So the three of us were like sitting facing each other. And that's when, again, I asked him, he was showing me again what his life was like. It was hell. This child was a slave. And again, no clothes. And that's when I said to him, we, Carol and I, will work to cross you. And, you can go back into the light. You can go home. You don't have to, be stuck any longer between worlds of this and the next. And it was lovely, because as what's happened before, and I've done this before, this incredible light filled the room. It was unbelievable. And this little soul, he stood up from the bed, and he turned, and it's like he disappeared into the light. And this feeling of peace that came into the room was beyond, it was just beautiful. So I thought, okay, interesting. I guess that's why we were here, is part of this journey was to help this sweet, dear soul to cross from, being stuck between worlds of, what I can only imagine his life was like when he was alive. And now he's at peace. So that was a lovely evening, end of that, and just thought, wow, okay, well done, guys. We did a good thing here. And then we go to Pompeii. And as I mentioned, Pompeii was quiet. I mean, I really thought I was going to get bombarded in Pompeii with God knows what, but it was relatively quiet. It leaves a big impact on you to be there, especially to see some of the bodies that are there that are, covered and frozen in time with all of the ash. It really does strike you. And so, as I mentioned, a lot of the villas were closed and, being renovated. and or actual archaeological sites, being worked on, so that we were very limited on what we could go with them. We're walking through going, geez, this stinks. And we had the time restraint on us now because they were going to close at 4:00. And so as we're walking through, I'm going up one of the roadways. I've got the others behind me, and I see this older gentleman walking down the road. And he's got this big set of keys on him. And every key was like an ancient old key. And it's jingling as he's walking. And I'm going, oh my God. And I intuitively knew. I'm like, all right, this is the guy with all the keys to all the villas in Pompeii. And so I turn around and I'm flagging and I'm waving to William, Claire, and Carol. I'm like, he's got the keys. So we run down. This poor guy, his name was Roberto, sweet older guy, put up with us. And we ascend on Roberto. And we're like, William's writing a book. We were hoping to get pictures. We were hoping to get in to see some of these villas. And, I know you're going to close and da-da-da. And he spoke very good English. And he's like, okay, I'm going to do this for you. So he said, and he pointed to the keys. He goes, I have all the keys to all the villas. And he said, meet me. I've got to close up, because by that point in time, it was 4:00. I've got to close up Pompeii, literally, and meet me at this, there was a far end, roadway over to the side of Pompeii that wasn't, a lot of tourists weren't there. It was just kind of a little side road. And he said, meet me there and I'll take you into these villas. And we're like, oh my God, thank you. Okay, so we go scrambling over and we're waiting for him. And sure enough, Roberto, good to his word, finds us. And do you know, it was so magical. He opened up these villas that people have not been able to get in probably 10 years. I mean, they had been closed for a very long time for all the archaeological work to be done, the restoration work. And it was unbelievable. And the frescoes that are in there, holy cow. So we went from one to another, and he'd run up, he'd unlock with that big old key, and then he'd flag us, and we'd go running in. It was the best caper ever that we got to see Pompeii this way. And then, he probably brought us into probably a good 4 or 5 of these villas. And I apologize. Every single one of their names is out of my memory. But the last villa that he wanted to bring us to was the Villa of Mysteries. And I didn't know really anything about the Villa of Mysteries, other than I've heard of it. And it is one of the biggest villas there in Pompeii. And it's all the way out to the very far end of Pompeii. It's a very big villa. It sprawls over one whole corner of Pompeii. And we're walking over there, and I was stunned when we came upon this villa. And we went into it with, it had beautiful grounds around it. In the day, it must have been absolutely stunning because a lot of the gardens still exist. So we kind of came into the villa that way. We came into it under this beautiful portico of columns. The villa was very intact. It was astonishing how intact it was. And so as we walk in, so as I get closer, so they all go ahead of me. And I kind of was hanging back. I started to pick up on this very, very dark energy. And I thought, oh boy. And so I very, carefully just kind of took my steps. I kind of was, in my protective mode, knowing that I'm picking up on all this around me. And as we go deeper into the villa, we're now within the villa. Oh my God, huge big rooms, corridors, just stunning. And as, my group's ahead of me, they take a left turn. So they're going down the corridor and they take a left. And then all of a sudden I hear them go, oh my God, this is amazing. So I'm thinking to myself, whoa, what's up ahead? So as I get closer and I go and I take that left, they were in a room that was described as having been like a big, huge entertainment area of where they would have these lavish dinners. So in a sense, to us, it was probably like a big dining area. And part of it was open air with columns out to the gardens. But when I turned the corner and I looked in this room, the entire room was painted in that Pompeii red. Painted, and it had a fresco on it that started here on the left, went all the way down and around. And as I stood there and I looked at this fresco, there was a picture of this little boy that I saw in the museum. He's in that fresco. He's standing there naked. The only thing this little child had on were these strapped up little sandals that went up to his knees. He stood there naked. Now you can Google this picture. Google Villa of Mysteries. It'll no doubt show you this stunning fresco. And he's standing there holding, naked, he's reading off of something. So you can tell it's all kind of staged. And the whole fresco is about Dionysus. It's about the cult of Dionysus. And they're depicting an entire ceremony in that cult of Dionysus. And this little boy, who was a slave, was made to be part of this whole fresco. And I lost my breath. I couldn't believe what I was looking at. And as soon as I realized who this was that I'm seeing, I said to Carol, I said, that's the little boy. That's him. And she could feel him. And then I felt him. He came again and he stood next to me, stood next to her. She couldn't see him, but she could feel his energy. And he proceeds to show me how he died. So during all of this, the owner of the villa did not leave the villa. He took himself. I don't know if there were any other family members, possibly, but the slaves were made to stay. They weren't allowed to flee. So this little boy had to stay, and they all went down to the cellar of this villa. And that's where they perished. And that's what he showed me. And I thought, oh, good God. And, you know, again, you know, it was this feeling of what this little boy's life was like. It was heartbreaking, absolutely heartbreaking. But he was so sweet because it was like important for him for us to see how he died. And that was almost like the last part of his story with us, was that he had to show us that for whatever reason. I think it was his closure. So I think it was his way, and this is just me interpreting this, of closing that lifetime, of letting go of all of that was in that lifetime, and he was free. And and then he was gone. It was as though he was there, then he was gone. So he came back, I believe, just to show us where he died. And Roberto, you know, I'm crying at this point. So the others were kind of like, of course, they didn't know the whole big story. And so I just said, you know, I'm sorry, I just need a moment. And so they kind of went off and went out of the villa at that point, and I stayed behind. And I just had just some moments where I was just remembering this little boy and the exchange I had with him. And only to go outside to have Roberto, to have reality hit me in the face. And Roberto is trying to coax Carol and Claire and myself to go down to the cellar of this villa and have a bottle of wine. I'm like, oh my God, there is no bleeping way I'm going down to the cellar in that villa ever. And I just had to laugh. I mean, it was like, okay, that was my reality check. That was like, okay, get out of the heaviness of what just all happened. And it was like, holy cow. I mean, I laughed my ass off. I was just like, oh my God, Roberto, that's never going to happen. And he's laughing. He's trying to coax us. He's, come on now. Come on. I got a beautiful bottle of red down there. And I'm like, no. So I don't even know what Roberto does in the cellar of the Villa of Mysteries on a good day. I don't want to know. But I just thought it was so comical that after, that little bit of a heavy exchange there with our sweet little friend, that we were being invited to go down to the cellar of death to have red wine with Roberto. I mean, that memory hangs with me whenever I share this story. I just think, you know what? Thank you, Roberto. We all generously tipped Roberto, and we took some pictures with him, and we exited Pompeii. But it was a remarkable visit to Pompeii. I'll never forget it. And every once in a while, and I've written about this. So this has been in Outer Limits magazine with my dear friend Chris Evers. They published it, and I've spoke about this to other groups, this story, and it always does just touch my heart, that this little boy, from thousands of years ago, we were able to just help him cross, and he's in a better place. He's at peace, his sweet dear soul, and that was my experience in Pompeii. So it was remarkable, So, and so I got to tell you, I shared his story with the world, and when that was published, I can't tell you the people that reached out and just loved to hear his story. So his story has touched thousands of people now. That little guy's story,
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
And Kell's been wanting me to ask you, did the child spirit understand English?
Appeared to. Of course, it's all telepathic, so it was telepathically, he was telepathically communicating with me. It's funny, that's always an awesome question, because I don't know if anybody can answer that question, because I don't know if it's, and I've communicated with spirit all over the world. I don't know if it's the fact that it's a telecommunicated way of communicating that takes off the, speaking a different language connection. I don't know. I don't know. All I know is he was communicating to me. We obviously knew, I knew what he was telling me, a lot, showing me. He showed me a lot. So a lot of it, some talking, but a lot of it was being shown to me, for sure.
Right. I got an interesting question for you, but before I ask it, talking about the language barrier, I think the energy and the intention kind of overrides the language barrier, and they can read the energy. And so I think that's where the spirits are able to communicate, and we can understand them and they can understand us, because a lot of communication isn't actually done with words, it's done with actions and energy.
I agree, Michael. I agree. And I don't know about you, when you've had your interactions with spirit, a lot of times they show me things. So either I'm taken somewhere where they're showing me, they bring me to a place that, they loved, a place that they enjoyed being in, or they'll show me photographs. There have been times when I've had spirit come through and show me a photograph, and I describe the photograph to whoever, their loved one is who's communicating with me, and I describe the picture that they're showing me, only to find the actual photograph and say, okay, this is the photograph. And I said, yep, that's exactly what they showed me. So it's funny for me, a lot of times that'll happen. They'll show me things. Yeah. And yeah,
So the question I have for you is, because I had a similar ability of certain places being able to, like you call, time slip. My question to you is, do you think it could be because you were there in a past life, and that's why you can easily time slip in and get the experience, or do you feel like it's something different?
You know, I've gone around about that, Michael. I think that could be part of it. I also think for me, I am extremely sensitive to the earth energies. So to the ley line energies, to the aquifer energies, to the magnetic ley lines. That's a big piece for me. So of course, in any of these sacred sites all over the world, you know, that's part of what that is. I mean, that's, you know, the ancients built these sacred sites on these ley lines, on these cross energy lines. So I do know for me personally, that's part of what happens. I think is there's that anomalies are there, and I'm extremely susceptible to them. And I've learned that through past lives, that this is something I've experienced and I've been very sensitive to in other lifetimes, and have used these energies in other lifetimes. So yeah, I think there's that. I think there could be a past life connection. I don't know. I mean, that was a crazy experience, I will say to you, in Herculaneum. And it was okay, the best way I could describe it, and I know it's a little dramatic, but that's how it felt. It's like being at the Big Bang. It was like, bam, you had the ocean and you had the volcano eruption come. And that was the end. That was the end.
You know, that might also explain why they were turned to ash, is the water and lava hitting at the same time would have flash froze, possibly, because you have the cold of the ocean hitting the heat of the lava, and, you know, science does its thing, and boom.
I think so. Yeah. Yep. So yeah, that was you know, touches me every time I talk about those two experiences.
So we do have another region of area, if you're wanting to jump to, where both of us traveled to, not at the same time this time. We were different trips, but do you want to talk about your experiences in France?
Sure. I find it remarkable, Michael, that you and we had this parallel thing going on. So it's like, you know, we meet in Egypt. We're having these parallel cool experiences. We both can communicate with spirit. We both are just, love it. So one of these days we're gonna have to travel together. I'm just putting that out there for the universe to just let happen.
I'm open to it.
Yeah, same. Yeah, France. That, you know, again, it's so funny. I traveled there with William Henry, his wife Claire, and a group of beautiful souls. And William and Claire had a whole group tour planned, and I jumped on board. We actually spent some time in England before that tour, and then we went on to France together. And it was all about the Cathars, that particular trip, you know, that history of the Cathars. And, you know, and doing a little bit of research before that trip. It's funny, I don't always do my research because I'm intuitively told by my guides, there are some things I'm meant to go and experience without all of the knowledge prior to. But for whatever reason, I did do some homework on the trip to France. And one woman in particular came onto my path in doing my research, is Esclaman de Foix. She was a very high-level Cathar priestess, and she grew up in the region of southern France. In particular, her family were of noble descent. They had a castle in Foix, and Foix was in the same region as Carcassonne, that area of France. And so I, did a deep dive on her, and she's a remarkable woman, and learned a lot of the Cathar history. So that was a piece of that trip for me. And we climbed Mont Ségur, where the last stand of the last roughly 200 Cathars took place. And that Mont Ségur, that stronghold at the top of the mountain, was actually in Esclaman de Foix, in all of the upheaval that was going on at the time with the persecution of the Catholics trying to, eliminate the Cathars. She used her funds to reinforce the stronghold on top of Mont Ségur. And I know you were saying, Michael, you climbed up there as well. It's a remarkable place. You feel that history around you. You feel those, that last group up there. I can only imagine they were up there for, I want to say it was about a year. They held off the Pope's armies, and that was their last stronghold. So, held that in great reverence in my heart as we climbed up to Mont Ségur. And it was remarkable to sit up there in the beautiful silence and peace that there is still there. And again, that was another place I thought, gosh, what am I going to pick up there? But I truly picked up just peace. And the views are stunning. And so here's the interesting thing. When I was climbing up Mont Ségur, I kept hearing cattle bells. And I kept looking, so mind you, we're climbing up the side of a mountain. I kept looking down, trying to find, okay, where's the cattle? I'm hearing these cattle bells, cow bells. And I never saw any. So I thought, okay, that's weird. And I can remember saying to some of my friends who were climbing with me, do you hear cow bells? Do you hear the cattle bells? And they look at me and they're like, no, I don't hear any cow bells. I'm like, okay. Only for me to come back, after the fact and realize that there are hymns of the Cathars, and they are part of the hymn, part of what is sacred to them are these cattle bells. You hear them in in the background of a lot of their music, and that was unbeknownst to me at the time. So I thought it was interesting that I'm hearing these as I ascend and descend Mont Ségur. Right. And just these little things and then as we came down, we had a lovely French guide with us, and her and I ended up walking together as we got down towards the end. And as you descend, you go by, I'm sure you saw it, Michael, a beautiful stone cross in remembrance of the Cathars. It marks, their descent. So, when the Pope's men did come, they rounded up all of the Cathars that were up in Mont Ségur, and they chained them. They were women, children, men. They chained them together. They dragged them down the mountain to a point in a field where they gathered them all together and they set them on fire. They burnt them to death. That was the last stand of the Cathars. And it is noted by some of the men who were there in the Pope's army at the time that as they descended as a group in chains, they sang hymns. They were happy. There was no tears. And even as they came down and they were set ablaze, there was no screaming. even the children, they went to their death willingly, knowing they were going to a better place. And so when we got down to that area where supposedly they were, burnt to death in a pyre, I walked that area and I asked this French guide, I said, do you believe, because there was a sign over in like a parking lot area saying this is where the Cathars were burnt to death. And I can remember even just getting off the bus in the beginning, looking over there going, all right, that's not the place. That's just not the place. So as I came down, I said to her, that's not where this happened. Is it where that car park is? And she's like, no. So we walk over to this other field. And the minute I stepped into that area, I just knew. I knew. And again, I didn't know what I'd pick up. But the thing I did pick up on is this most incredible sense of peace. I just walked. I had tears in my eyes. I thought, are there any souls still lingering here that might need to cross? It was one of the most peaceful places I've ever been on this earth. It was beautiful. And it was a beautiful sunny day. And it was as though it was just peaceful. That's the best thing I can say. So, so from having that incredible experience, we then traveled to Lourdes, France. Did you go to Lourdes, Michael, when you were in?
I did, actually.
Yeah. So what struck me when we went to Lourdes, first thing, our tour bus pulls into Lourdes. I am struck by the commercialization of Lourdes. It's as though it was an affront to me. I was physically angry. I'm thinking, what in God's name? You can see all these little tchotchke shops underneath these hotels that are built up and, selling glow-in-the-dark Madonnas. And I'm going, what is this? This is not right. And it was just an affront. And that's like the first day we land there and we're going to our hotel and we're on these little narrow roads with a big bus and big hotels on either side. I thought, okay, this is just wrong. And so, we get into the hotel and we come back out and we make our way down to where the beautiful basilica is and, where the baths are, where the holy waters are and all of that. And that is beautiful. So that's what I wanted Lourdes all to be, but yet there is this kind of touristy thing going on. And I thought, okay, all right, it is what it is. And so our first day out, we ended up going up into a little village where Saint Bernadette grew up. And her father was the milliner there. So he ground the flour. Their home is still there. I don't know if you went to their home, Michael. Did you guys do
I'm not
the
sure
Saint Bernadette thing? Yeah, it was, the house is still there. Their first house anyway. They're a very poor family. To the point that the mill for the flour was in the middle of the house. And it was a very small little house is around this mill work. And as I went in, I could hear with my ears, my physical ears, I could hear the family. I could hear I could hear laughter of children. I could hear, older voices. So there was a multi-generational family in the house. And I thought, wow, I guess I didn't know what to expect there. I was pleasantly surprised. And then I also saw, I was shown, Spirit showed me Bernadette, who was, I guess now I know, I didn't know at the time, was very close to her grandmother. And Bernadette as a child was very sickly. And her grandmother shared a bed together because her grandmother was that much older and she was not well as well. So they kind of got the choice bed in the house. A lot of the family slept together in the kitchen on the floor. I saw that. It was like this little snippet out of time of Bernadette's life. It was remarkable. And, so from there, we ended up going to, then back into, back to the hotel to Lourdes. And our second day, we were going to, go into Lourdes proper. and have time at the beautiful basilica there. And it was arranged for us to go as a group to the sacred waters, to go into the baths at Lourdes. And my friend and I, we had been out, we had a plan to meet at 2:00 at the baths. And we were running late. So, you know, we run up and we join our group, and our group was that much further ahead of us. So as you go into where the baths are, I'm sure you remember, Michael, there's a male bathhouse and there's a female bathhouse.
Right.
And of course, the female bathhouse had the longest line queued up around it to get in. And so our group split, you know, the guys were, you know, going into the guys' bathhouse, and us gals, you know, and we, my dear friend, her God-given name was Mary Magdalene. I won't say her last name, but her God-given name was Mary Magdalene. So I'm at Lourdes with Mary Magdalene. So her and I, you know, we're just the two of us because our group had already gone ahead of us. So we get into the queue, we're sitting there, and I'm expecting to have this incredible, like, just experience of God, of godliness, of a sacred healing, of just, you know. So it took us probably a good 45 minutes or an hour to go through this queue. And you're in a long line, you're standing, it was hot. You know, we kept inching our way closer to where the bathhouse was. And as you got closer, you know, they had musicians that would come out and they'd play and sing hymns. And, you know, everybody was in a state of deep reverence. You know, you're in prayer, you're getting ready to go into these sacred baths and have this, you know, healing experience. And so we're inching our way there, me and Mary Magdalene. And at one point, it was like a series of entrances to get into where these actual baths were. So we got close to the cement building. You know, we're sitting in a row of pews in front of this building. So we finally got to the building itself, and then they have volunteers that will flag you in. You know, so you had to wait, and so we're waiting, and I started to truly feel, out of absolutely nowhere, this incredible feeling of dread and fear came over me, just washed over me. And I sat there and I thought, what is going on? Holy cow. And Mary Magdalene, she's talking to me. She's, you know, and I'm thinking, what's happening to me here? And it got so intense that I started streaming tears and sobbing. And I looked at her, and we're sitting there, sitting now right outside of the bathhouse. And I said to her, I can't go in there. I gotta go. I gotta go. And I could barely speak. And she puts her arm around me, and she had a very heavy Boston accent. And she says, doll, you ain't going nowhere. You made it this far here. You're not leaving. You're going through here. And I went, oh God. I said, I don't know. I don't know what's happening here, but I am sobbing. And I said to her, and she goes, just breathe, take a breath. It'll be okay. We're going to do this together. We'll do it together. I'm here. And I'm like, okay. So I can remember sitting there going, thanking all my guides. Thank you. Only you guys would send me to Lourdes to sit there with Mary Magdalene and have her comfort me. I thought, wow. So we go into another phase of the bathhouse. I don't know if it was like that, Michael, on the men's side, but there was like the series of curtained doorways. It was crazy. It reminded me of Oz, with the Wizard of Oz behind the curtains kind of running the whole show. And so we go into this next curtained area, and we were flagged to sit on this very ancient old bench. And so it was just me and Mary Magdalene sitting there. And that's when the fear really, really took over. And she just kept talking me down from running out of there. And I had no idea what was going on for me. No idea. I was so looking forward to doing this whole thing at Lourdes. And and again, you know, we get flagged up. You know, we had these women flag us to go into this next curtain area. We're sitting on another bench. And I thought, oh my God, I got to get out of here. I cannot do this. And again, sobbing. I said, I'm going. I can't stay. She goes, you're not going anywhere. And so then, and again, she said to me, we're going to do this together. So we'll go in together. Don't worry about it. I'll be here with you. Well, don't you think this woman comes out of the curtain and she flags Mary, just Mary, and leaves me sitting there. And Mary goes into the curtain and I'm like, oh, no. She took my Magdalena. And I was like, holy cow. So I'm sitting there. Now I'm falling apart. I am so falling apart. And I have no idea why. So not me. And again, this other woman, and I can hear all the splashing going on. So I knew whatever's behind this next curtain is the water. So I'm trying to breathe, sitting there, calm yourself down. They're going to think you're a nut job. And this woman comes out of the curtain and she flags me like this. And I thought, now's my time to run, but I didn't. I go through the curtain and I go in and was not prepared for this at all. So what happens is, for all of you people who are going to take this trip at some point, be aware. You strip naked, totally naked. You take off all your clothes. They have these women in there that help you. Very rustic. It's a very bare room. And there's a peg on the wall. You take off your clothes. You put them on the peg. Then they come to you and they cloak you in this dark, wet, navy black cape. And they put it around you to cover your nakedness. Of course, I'm really losing it now because now I'm naked. I'm still crying my eyes out, sobbing. And they're looking at me like, oh, Jesus, look at what, look what's coming. And I thought, so they made me sit in the corner. They pointed to a chair. They're like, you sit. So I'm sitting there. Now, I've got all these other women coming into this bathhouse and they're going into the waters and I'm sitting in the corner and I'm crying. And so I'm thinking, so this woman looks at me, we lock eyes and I'm like, how come I'm not going in? I'm like trying to, point, can I be next? And then she flags me. And I go through I go through the curtains. And there's a bath there. It's a cement bath. I'm guessing it was like that for you, Michael. Filled with cold, dirty water. And it's a square rectangle. And right across from you, so I'm standing at the edge of this rectangular bath of water. And on the wall is this ceramic Madonna and Child plaque. And now I'm really, really losing it. I honest to God, I don't even know what's going on. And I'm sobbing and I'm shaking, like I can barely stand up. And this woman comes up to me and she comes right in my ear here. And she says to me, look at the Madonna and tell her your intentions. Now, mind you, when we were sitting out in the line, I had all the intentions of the world all planned out for me in this bath. I stood there and I was like, I can't stay here. Well, she looked at me. The other women come up. They take me by both arms. They bring me into the water. They plunk me down on my knees in the water. I'm trying to get back up. I'm now really, really crying. And they try to flip me backwards into the water. And they do to a point. And then they flip me up. As they flip me back in that water, I had this incredible vision that I have died like this in the past life, that I've drowned, I've died like this, just like this in a past life. And as they flipped me back up out of that water, I thought, oh my God, I'm like that. I literally screamed, I am leaving, I'm getting out of here. And I kept trying to get out of the pool. So they finally walked me up. Look how dark my background is now. Yeah. They finally walked me out. And you could tell they were pissed. They're like, this is American. And sobbing. I could barely walk. When these two women, who I don't recall seeing, come from another corner of the room, come up to me, and they took me under each arm, and they almost like embraced me. They just helped me out of the pool. So the other ladies that were not so nice, kind of, I don't even know where they went, but I had these two beautiful women come up to me. One was older. She looked like she was well in her 70s. The other was that much younger. And they helped me out of the pool. They, literally almost carry me into back into the changing room where your clothes are on a peg. And again, I'm still sobbing. And I just, I don't know why. I can't even process what was going on there. And they walked me over to where my clothes were. They encircled me in a hug. They just held me. And I sobbed. So the older woman took my head like you would a child, and she just laid my head on her chest, and she pat me, and she talked to me. They sounded to me like they were speaking in Italian, which I know is odd because we're in France, but just cooing to me like a baby. It's okay. This is what I think I'm hearing. I don't speak Italian. It's okay. She's just, and then the other woman comes around and puts her arms around the two of us, and we're standing there, and they're like, it's okay. And they're both calming me down. Then the older woman takes my face in her hands, and she kisses both my cheeks and my lips. And then she bows to me. Then the other woman comes over, same thing, kisses both my cheeks and bow. And they just hug me. And the love that they shared to me was beyond anything I've ever experienced in this lifetime. And I will say to you, my own mother was not one of the most loving people demonstratively. Never got hugged, never got really kissed. I mean, that wasn't part of what my mother was like, let's just say. So to have these women do that to me at this incredible moment where I had no idea why I was losing my mind, basically, what is going on here. But I knew intuitively something incredible was happening. To the point that, again, intuitively, I knew as these women hugged me and held my face that they have done this for me before. I just intuitively knew. I knew that they have done this for me before. And it just, oh God, I can picture them as clear as day now, and I can feel their love. And they helped me dress. So another note to anybody going to Lourdes: do not wear super tight skinny jeans because your body's soaking wet. They don't give you a towel, and you try to get back into your skinny jeans. It is not pretty. And they're helping me get dressed. And so again, I'm dressed and I'm still crying. And they're just, again, big hugs, the kiss and and I said goodbye, and I thanked them. I just gave them my love back, and I left. My legs were like this. They were like jelly in my tight, wet, skinny jeans. And I get out, and I'm going, what was this? And I go to the restroom. I could barely walk. Then I go out, and I try to find Mary Magdalene, my Mary Magdalene. And I see her at the far corner, and we both run to each other and hugged each other. And she's like, are you okay? I mean, I must have looked like something the cat literally dragged in. And I was I had lost it. And she said, wow. I said, what kind of experience did you have? She said, well, it wasn't what I thought it was going to be. I said, oh yeah, you think? Neither was mine. So the two of us were like, but we agreed. Somehow we agreed. Intuitively, we just both knew. Don't share this experience with the others. We'll keep this to ourselves. And then there was one other woman there who we came to reconnect with also. And she equally had a very uncomfortable experience there. Whereas others had a remarkable, beautiful experience on all levels for them. So it was interesting that the three of us, and again, intuitively, even this third gal, she intuitively knew. We all agreed we're not going to share our experience. It's ours to hold. We're not going to share it.
Right.
And so I come home from Lourdes, and I've spoke about him before, Michael, I think in our first episode of my very, very profound teacher that came on my path. His name is Xenos. He was very anxious to hear about my experience in Lourdes. So I wrote him a very long letter, email. I detailed my entire experience I just spoke of. And he wrote me back, and I'm going to read to you what he wrote me, because I was shocked. But it made all the sense of the world. So he said to me, I am glad that you had a special connection with Bernadette in her home. As you have felt, it was a very loving home and a place where she was happy. And that's exactly what I did feel. They were a happy, beautiful family. The grotto, the church, is on the right place. However, I had picked up, I did not know this, but above the original grotto where the Blessed Mother appeared to Bernadette is another grotto above. And when I was there, I was pulled to go up to the upper grotto. And I felt like, as I stood there, it felt familiar, but yet it felt like, gee, did the church get this wrong? Was that lower grotto maybe not the original grotto, but this one up above was? So, that kind of, was an experience. I thought, well, this is interesting. There's two grottos. So he's referring to this, where I was questioning the grotto, which of the grottos was the original. He says, one of them was he said, you picked up on the other grotto because you have 2 lifetimes in the Lourdes area. One of them was also as a Druid priestess. And in those days, both the grotto where Mary appeared, the lower grotto, and the other grotto were sacred areas. And you were in charge of the upper grotto, which is why it felt more original to me. So that's why it felt familiar to me when I walked up there, was that I had had a past life there in that area, and that I was in charge of that upper grotto. The trauma at the baths relates to the second lifetime. In that lifetime, you were a Breton craft witch and were once again in charge of the area of the springs. Breton craft is a good white witchcraft tradition, and it's a French tradition. It deals with guarding the forests and the springs and with various healing rituals, which is all I do right now in this lifetime. The witches wear a cloak called a forest cloak and wear nothing underneath it so that they can access the solar form of earth energy. The cloak is black in color so that they can blend in with the shadows of the forest. You will notice that this is a close resemblance to the cloak that you were wrapped in. In that lifetime, the groves were raided by fanatical Christian soldiers who cut down the trees and killed all the witches by drowning them in the sacred springs. You were drowned just where the baths are now situated! ! You also died in great distress because you were the senior priestess and you believed wrongly that maybe you could have saved the other lives. Because of that wrong belief, which was unconsciously holding you back spiritually, it was necessary that you re-experience the trauma, but this time emerge alive with neither you nor your companions being physically harmed. So I had to have that dark night of the soul. I had to re-experience that lifetime. And he goes on to tell me that, oh darn, I don't have the next page, rats. That the women who were so kind to me, They were my mother and grandmother in that lifetime that I died there at Lourdes. So they came to me again in this lifetime to offer me once again love and comfort that, as I said to you, I intuitively knew they had done this for me before, and they had. They were my loving family in that lifetime. So he wrapped it up with his letter, and what Xenos would do for me is, he would like this. He would share these lifetimes. He would acknowledge them for me, only if I had an inkling of what the lifetime was. He would never just go, oh, hey, by the way, you had XYZ as a lifetime. Right. So it's interesting that the Breton Craft Witch, there's not a lot of information out there about it, but that resonated so much for me, I can't tell you, that I work now. This is part of who I am in this lifetime, with these solar earth energies. And Michael, we had a bit of a discussion before we came on air that I mentioned it as we were talking about Herculaneum and the energies there. I am so susceptible to these energies. So this is something I've come back into, in this lifetime. I'm still able to tap into those energies. They're energies that are familiar to me. I use these energies in my healing work. So I found it remarkable. And the other thing I found remarkable is that dark navy cape that they put on me is something that is what we wore, to be able to absorb the solar energies out in the forest. And so the whole thing, it just was a remarkable experience. Again, I have written about this experience. It has been published. I've done a presentation on this experience with a lot more of the history of the Cathars related to it, but that there's a big plan afoot here with me, and it's all to do with this sacred travel for me, going back. And it appears that it's all connected back to past lifetimes. Egypt, France, Italy, possibly Italy. It for whatever reason, and I think it's connected just intuitively. I have a sense it's connected to the fact that I can tap into the Akasha, that it's there, that, it's out there. And that when I come to these sacred places, it almost opens like a portal of sorts, I guess, that I can step back into these lifetimes and experience some of those lifetimes. And it's remarkable. So I know my teacher, he came on my path in 2015. He left us in 2018. But according to him, and I do have some remembrance, I do tap into this. We do still meet on the astral plane. He is still a teacher for me. And it's pretty cool stuff. So yeah, there's France, Michael.
Well, and what's interesting is I don't normally get anything, but when you were telling your story right before you were talking about the letter from Xenos, I heard inside that I was like, yeah, you needed to face your past life to overcome it and see the other side of it. And yes, you were in Italy there in the past. So all of these you're on a journey of soul retrieval, so to speak.
Absolutely. That's the term, soul retrieval. Yes. Spot on, Michael. That's it. Yeah. I think it's a journey for you as well. I think there are those of us that, what are your thoughts about why? I don't know. I just
why is because we let part of ourselves, because we felt like, so my opinion of it is like in our lifetimes we always want to be remembered for something. We want our lives to matter, so we leave parts of ourselves behind. Well, now it's the time of I hear a lot of people saying the Great Awakening or the return of a friend of mine, Alex Collier, says, this is a time frame where all timelines are merging into one timeline. So we need to, as we're merging, all parts of ourselves are going to return to ourselves, and we're going to truly become the one, I guess, essence or self that we are. And so I think those of us who are more attuned and more aware of the energies around us here, it's kind of funny because like the Irish, one of my favorite Irish songs is calling me home. Ireland, the call of Ireland. It's calling me home.
Yeah.
So when I go on trips, I feel like I'm being pulled there because I'm going home to retrieve a part of me that I left to move on to the next. And so, yeah, we're on a journey of soul retrieval. We're on a journey of finding our oneself. That's the term I was looking for, oneself. So the metaphysical reference of where we truly are one with everything. Well, we can't be that if part of us, part of a past life memory is blocking, for you, example, in France, or, it could be Italy, or for me, it could be when I went to Hawaii. And so as we're putting it all back together, we're starting to become more aware of our gifts. Our abilities are becoming more aware. And by that, I mean, we're able to see, hear, feel, kind of like the time slip, where we're somewhere where we've never been, but we're experiencing it in a different way. And I think that's why, for me, whenever I go to locations, I try to time slip to see what's going on, but I can't because there's not a part of me there. That's why I feel like you have to have that past life piece, because my experience has been it's only certain places. I can't go, like, say, to a hotel in Ballinger and time slip, but I can go to Vicksburg and time slip because I have a past life there. I've had past lives in different Civil War battlefields. In certain fields, I experience differently. Yorktown, I experienced differently. But it's interesting that, like you're saying, yeah, as we're being called to pull everything together and become, like, I guess, to quote William, our rainbow body self is calling us, and we're taking our steps towards it.
It's funny, as you talked, the phrase that I kept hearing is one is all is one. And that is the tenet of Vedanta, which is, I've been called to the teachings of Vedanta, which are very ancient teachings. They kind of originated with Sri Ramakrishna. So it's a Hindu construct, but they believe in all of the prophets, and truly their mantra is, one is all and all is one. So there's no denomination. We're all the same. We're all, whoever you worship, and you honor that. And it's just like, I don't know why though, that phrase was coming to me as you were talking. But I think you're right. I think it's absolutely soul retrieval. Yeah, that's been a big part for me in this lifetime.
There's
Crazy.
there's a question in the chat room if you have time, because I know we're 20 minutes over.
Oh God, I'm good to say. How can I see the chat room, Michael? I wasn't able to see it.
I'm not. Do you see a tab on your right that says
I got it. I was clicking into private chat. And,
oh yeah, that's just for you and I.
Comments. Hey gang, now I can see everybody's comments.
So
what one, Michael?
Nickname is asking. She's came in late, so she doesn't know if this has already been asked. But to answer your question, Nickname, no, this question was not asked, so we're gonna ask it now. What could be the UFO paranormal connection be?
Well, being an experiencer, having had contact, I do believe the two are related. I just even know since I was a child, it started off for me having paranormal experiences. Then it went into seeing craft. And so I've always just kind of equated the two to be one. There's the one. And that I think just from people I know that I've spoken to, like yourself, Michael, I do feel that there is a connection. Do you? I mean, it almost feels like, you open that paranormal door and you tap into, what powers, what spidey powers you may have. And then that door opens to, a UFO connection, or vice versa. So I do think, good question. I do think that for me, I feel they can be totally related.
Yeah, I agree as well. And Nickname says she agrees.
Thank you. Yes, thank you.
One thing I like to clarify is, so paranormal by definition is anything that's unexplained. So the paranormal for me covers UFO, covers stargates, covers wormholes, covers interdimensional travel, interdimensional beings, cryptids. There's a whole host of things that people get hung up on because we watch the paranormal TV shows where they're always ghost hunting, that's the paranormal field, and that's just a small piece of it. So yes, there is, I would say, UFO paranormal connections to a lot of things. And without causing too much controversy, because I'll save this for another show, because it would need a whole show unto itself or a series. But we were all seeded by extraterrestrials, so the UFO connection has been around since we've existed. So we're just starting to become aware of what our ancestors knew, and that's why they were more advanced and could build these megalithic structures that we can't even begin to fathom, because they were in tune with a whole nother set of energies that we were, I like to say, robbed from, but we were taught part from, so we lost that, and we're just now starting to be able to get it back.
I agree. And again, for another show, because I know we didn't get to it last show, we talked some Egyptian experiences, but that's exactly the message I got when I had contact with a being while I was in Egypt. That's exactly what he told me, is that they were here, they came to help establish our ancient civilizations. They still watch out for us. So I find it so interesting that yesterday was the start of the Galactic New Year. Yesterday was the start, and we had the hearings in Washington. And it could not have kicked off on a better day, if you ask me. I thought the serendipity of all of that to be remarkable, and that yeah, it's the door's been cracked open. Many of us know, I know, as experiencers, as people who have come in contact with these beings. It's funny, Michael, I don't like the term alien. It's always rubbed me the wrong way. And I can't even explain to you why, but I prefer to call them beings because they're, they're alive. They're beings. Yeah.
I think part of it is
they're sentient, I believe.
Alien has been deemed to be a two-forked word because it could mean someone that's not of this world, but it's also made to represent someone who's here illegally. And so it's like it's a forked word because it's like it's gotten now several different connotations. So it's
exactly.
Like, yeah, to use that word, it's like I feel like, yeah, if I say aliens are among us, I have to spend more time explaining what aliens are among us than if I just say, yeah, there are beings or extraterrestrials around.
I agree. I know. It's, yeah. But yeah, no, I would love to, last show we didn't go into it. So at some point, I would love to share that full exchange because, again, it was a remarkable experience. I think when I look back on it, I don't hold any fear, having had that. I feel blessed that I was able to have that encounter. And yeah.
Well,
it's cool.
Actually, not to, kind of blow my own horn about all of this, but you and I are actually doing a show September 6th on my other channel, The Energy That Surrounds Us, all about this experience and these topics.
So we will take that deep dive on that one, baby. Oh boy. That was wow. Yeah. So that's why, to have everything unfold the way it did yesterday and to now, have people talking about what they're seeing and, having a bipartisan response as in unity to accept that this is happening, that we're finally, having, we can have the conversation, I think it's huge. And I am a big proponent that they are out there. They watch over us. They have, they've continued to protect us. They established us as we spoke in the ancient civilizations. They were there. We have never been alone, ever.
No.
Nope.
And and I am going to say for the fans of this show, I know this was set up to be the part 2 of our conversation, but everyone, we have still so much more to talk about with Kathy that we're actually going to have to put together a part 3. And
love it.
Did you ever think there would be a trilogy about you?
Well, kinda. I had a 2-part series published in Phenomena magazine about my Egyptian travels. So it's happening. I tell you, it's
so
right out there. Yeah.
So everyone stay tuned and we'll schedule that to have Kathy back on Paranormal Versus, and hopefully Kell will be feeling better that day. And
missed you, Cal. I hope you feel better.
And so with the fact that we are at our time, I am going to say thank you to Kathy for coming on and continuing to share your experiences and stories with us.
My pleasure. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, guys. It was great. I wished I could have seen the comments sooner. Now I know.
Yes. Thank you to the chat group. And
Yeah.
We will be back next week, August 3rd, with John J. Davis. So don't want to miss that. So with that being said, I will send us out.
Good night, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Good night. Thank you for joining us at Paranormal Verses. Hope to see you on our next episode.